For episode 11, it's Sakura's first time to Madison's house. So, anyway, there's Sakura riding on the bus heading to Madison's house, but she's not the only one who's going there because Kiro, who's inside of her purse at the moment, is his first time there too. So while Sakura is looking out the window, hoping to get there to Madison's house, that's when she started having a flashback back at Sakura's school during gym class. And that's when Madison had asked Sakura if she would come by at her house. And Sakura said sure. And she wants to know why. Well, Madison explains it is because she said that she has a serious problem on her hands, although in an explicit detail, she can't explain to Sakura even more than that unless she comes by at Madison's house. So Sakura agrees, and then she told Madison that she'll be by on a Saturday. Then Sakura also agrees with Madison that since Kiro's never been to the house and neither did Sakura, so she suggests that Kiro should go along too, and Madison agrees. So back to the present, back with Sakura that's riding on the bus. So when Kiro comes out of the purse, by accident of course, claiming his case that he couldn't breathe in there. So Sakura looked at the passengers that were looking at her. She says, "Oh, it's just my stuffed animal. Don't worry about it. It's nothing to worry about." So Sakura told Kiro, who was in the purse, saying, "You can't just be recognized like this. You have to be on low profile." "I know," Kiro says, "but I just can't breathe in there, that's all." So Kiro says, "Well, are we there yet?" "Don't worry," Sakura says, "I'm sure we'll be there soon." "Well," Kiro says, "for your sake, we better be there." "All you had to do is just be patient for a little longer, that's all," Sakura said. Then Sakura says, "Don't forget, Madison says that she's making your favorite cake." Finally, the bus arrives at the bus stop. And then, meanwhile, that's when Sakura got off. Then she looked at the directions that she has gotten earlier to find Madison's house. So Sakura started walking from the bus stop to Madison's house. But she finds it really weird because she should have been there right about that very minute. So Kyoru comes out of Sakura's purse to say, "Here, let me help you with that." And so he looked at the map that Sakura had in her hand. So after Kyoru gets done looking at the map that Sakura had, then Sakura had a thought that Madison's house should be around somewhere not far away from the bus stop. So Kiro decides to assist Sakura by flying up in the air to find Madison's house, and so he did. And that's when, before long, that's when Kiro sees it. And that's when Sakura says, "What is it? Did you find it?" "Well, I think you should see for yourself," Kiro suggested. So what he did is that he grabbed Sakura from behind and lifts her up in the air. And then before you know it, that's when, lo and behold, she found Madison's house. And no wonder she couldn't see it. So now that Sakura had landed safely thanks to Kuro and intact, she goes to the front gate where she buzzed in. So after the gate opened up, that's when she walked herself in. Now Sakura could tell that she was in awe by the size of a place. And what's more interesting about it is because it has a fountain up front. As Sakura continues to go further down to where the front door of Madison's house is, she can tell that she was really fascinated and in fact mesmerized. Then finally, at last, she comes upon the front door of Madison's house. So when the front door opened up, Sakura was happy to see her best friend, Madison. And of course, Madison was glad to see her too. So after the two girls had met each other, that's when Madison says, "Where's Kiro?" And that's when Kiro pops out and looks at Madison from Sakura's purse. So after Madison said hello to Kira, who was hiding inside Sakura's purse, that's when two girls went inside. After they went inside the house, Sakura was in awe by the size of a hallway inside of the house, of course. Then Sakura and Madison just heard the voice of a maid that just showed up. Luckily for Kiro, he hid inside Sakura's purse. So the maid wants to know if she would have some tea being served in Madison's room. And of course, Madison asked the question, "Could you make it three?" "Of course," the maid answers. So after that, both Madison and Sakura head off. So back with Madison and Sakura, the first thing they did is they go to Madison's room. Now Sakura, however, was very fascinated with the size of Madison's room because on the table there's a sewing kit. The next thing that Sakura did is that she head towards the bedroom window and she can tell by the view of it. And it was fascinating. Kuro, who comes out later from Sakura's person, he too seems impressed. And what Sakura did next is that she was about to witness what was behind the partition. And what she saw was amazing. A home theater entertainment center that has a huge screen TV. So every time Madison videotapes it, she, how you say, projects it on her television, which is interesting. The next thing that Sakura saw is right next to the sewing kit that Madison had is a fairy costume. Sakura was very fascinated. So Madison not only said that that costume is indeed for her, but she said that there's some even better news, that she had just finished it just previously. Sakura even said, "You don't have to go through all this trouble for me. I got an idea. Why don't you keep the costume?" "I can't do that," Madison said. "This costume is especially for you." So after Sakura agrees with her best friend, and that's when Sakura says, "So let me get this straight. The other day at gym class, you said you have a problem, correct?" But suddenly, just before Madison could explain the situation, there was a knock on the door. It's Madison's mother. You remember her from the last episode, Samantha? Well, luckily for Kuro, he found a place to hide in the sewing kit. As soon as Samantha came in, the first thing that Madison did was to say hello to her mother. "It's nice to see you," Sakura said. "Well, I'm glad you've made it," Samantha says. "Do you have any problems finding our house at all?" Samantha asked. So Sakura says no. And of course, Madison's mother, Samantha, made an omission to say, our house can be very tricky to find sometimes. And of course, she isn't kidding. So after Samantha made a suggestion that they should have some cake and tea outside the garden area, that's when the maid shows up. So after the maid agreed to bring the tea outside in the garden area, that's when all four of the women left the room, leaving Kira all by himself. So back with Kiro now all by himself in Madison's room, he thought he sensed something very unusual, very weird, but he isn't sure of it yet. So back at the garden just outside of Madison's house, there's Sakura and Madison who are sitting at the table while Samantha is cutting up the strawberry cake that she says that she just picked up earlier that morning. Madison made a compliment to say how good the cake looks. As a matter of fact, Samantha explains that she said that she just got it from the bakery that's nearby. And of course, she even discovered something really unusual about Sakura because just like her and Tori's late mother, she liked strawberries. So after Sakura thanked Samantha for giving her a piece of strawberry cake, that's when she started eating it. So after Sakura and Madison had finished up their slices of cake, that's when Sakura couldn't help but think to herself as Samantha was staring at her. Now Samantha could tell that the resemblance between both Sakura and Tori's late mother and Sakura herself were absolutely undeniable. Now remember in the last episode, Samantha continues to tell Sakura how she reminded her of her late best friend, which is Sakura and Tori's late mother, and etc. So after Samantha's memories fade away, that's when Madison wants to know what was wrong with her. "Don't worry about it," Samantha says. "It's just probably nothing." And she tries to brush it off. So Samantha, after she had a sip of her tea, that's when she asked Sakura a question. "You're a cheerleader, right?" "That's right," Sakura said. Then Samantha asked, "You're an athlete too, right?" "Of course," Sakura said. Then Sakura made an omission with Samantha that as long as she did her best at sports, that she could be very good at it most of the time. And of course, Samantha made a compliment with Sakura that she had her mother's good looks, and of course she isn't kidding. Then Samantha also complimented to Sakura about how she has her athletic ability, just like her father. And in flashback, we go to when Sakura's late mother, and let's not forget Tori's late mother, was very young. And as Samantha explains it, how they both did everything together when they were kids while growing up. They went to school together, they did everything together. Except for one thing. Natasha has a mild accidental tendencies, as I explained earlier. Also, they also went skiing together. That was until everything changed one day. It was at the time that the baby bird fell out of its nest one day. And of course, as kind as Natasha was, what did she do? She climbed up the tree and puts the baby bird back into its nest where it belonged. And then before you know it, she by accident fell out of the tree and landed on her future husband, which was Tori and Sakura's father, Aiden. And of course, the rest they say is history. The two fell in love and got married. Then, after Aiden and Natasha got married, Tori was the first to be born. And then Sakura about a year or two, although I can't say for sure. So, back to the present! In the garden outside of Madison's house, that's when Sakura told Samantha it was a good thing that Natasha, which is Sakura and Tori's late mother, and Aiden had met when they did. Samantha was shocked. And then she asked Sakura why. And Sakura says, well, think about it. Had my mother, and let's not forget Tori's mother, had not have met Aiden when she did, when she had fallen out of that tree, they never would have gotten married and fell in love. And according to Sakura, what she says in her case, she would never have been born like she did. So you see, Sakura also explains, it's what my friend told me. Expect the unexpected, but she won't say who it was. Then Sakura also told Samantha that it was fate or destiny that brought her parents together when they did, and then asked Samantha if she had agreed with it. Samantha doesn't say a word at first and then had this thought about what Sakura said and how fate had brought her parents together, and everything that she said was true. So after Samantha drinks her tea and then had a thought, she answered Sakura's question. Samantha says, yes, I suppose it is fate or destiny that brought your parents together, and she admitted to that. Then Samantha had another omission that ever since Natasha passed away just 4 years prior, she admitted that she had missed her very much. Then Samantha also admitted that ever since Natasha passed away, things just hadn't been the same. And of course, as much as she would like to admit it, she was a kind and giving person. And of course, she isn't kidding. So after Sakura, who appreciated a compliment from Samantha that one day Sakura will grow up to be just like her mother one day, that's when the maid shows up to let Samantha know that she has a phone call back at the toy company to say there's an emergency that's going on back there. So after Samantha had found out what was going on back at the office, that's when she ends the phone call, after she said that she'll be right there in a few minutes. So Samantha apologized to both Madison and her best friend Sakura that she has some bad news back at the office and that she'll have to leave. That's okay, Madison says, because she said that she and Sakura are planning to go back to Madison's room. Then Samantha says, don't worry, I'll be back home later. So the girls agreed, and so they head off. Back inside Madison's house, that is. So back with Sakura and Madison, who went upstairs to the second floor inside the house, the first thing they did is that they go inside Madison's room, and that's when they found Kiro. And the reason why Kiro's upset because he made his case of how he's been upstairs all day long, and then of course Sakura apologized. And that's when, thanks to Madison, she says, "Oh, to make you feel better? Incidentally, I just saved the last piece of cake just for you." And of course, Kira was more than happy to hear it from Madison. Once Kira calms down, that's when Sakura thanked her best friend for saving her. And of course, as Kira, however, eats his piece of cake, he says, "Oh, by the way, I got some good news. I sensed out you know what." And Sakura says, "Where?" "Oh, you don't have to look very far," Kira said. Then Madison just let slip to say to Sakura and Carol, coincidentally, that's why I brought you here in the first place. Because she started to explain that the problem started with the jewelry box that was in Samantha's room. And for some unknown reason, she just couldn't open it. Because, luckily for Madison, she has a key for the jewelry box. So let me get this straight, Sakura says. You tried to open the jewelry box, but now it won't? I forgot to mention that both Sakura and Madison are now in Samantha's room. So Kiro, who's now with them, said it is definitely a cloud card because he says in his case that he can sense it from anywhere and it's coming from the jewelry box. So Sakura had a thought and then realizes that what Kiro said is true. But to prove Kiro right, luckily for Madison, as I said, she has a key for the jewelry box. She says, watch and learn. So Madison went ahead to use her key for the jewelry box. But for some unknown reason, something or someone bounced the key right off of Madison's hand, and the key landed on the floor. So now that Kiro had been proven right that it is indeed a cloud card, so you see, Madison says, that explains why I brought you and Kiro here in the first place. So now that Madison has the key after she picks it up off the floor, she just couldn't believe just up until that very minute there's a cloud card in her house. Then Madison said that just earlier she asked her mother right before her mother left if it would be okay if Madison has the jewelry box in her room. So Madison said that she's willing to give it a shot, but here's another problem, Madison explains, because her mother is planning to take the jewelry box to the locksmith the following Monday if she couldn't get the box opened. So, as supportive as she can be, that's when Sakura says, don't worry, we'll catch this cloud card. So you know what this means. That means that Sakura will have to hurry because Samantha may be back at any time. So now all Sakura has to do is find out what kind of cloud card will keep Madison from opening the jewelry box. Recording it on her video camera, as usual, is Sakura's best friend. So what Sakura did first is that she uses the sealing wand's tip to touch the box, and when it did, out of nowhere was the mysterious dome that's surrounding the box. So Sakura now knew that it is the shield card. No wonder Madison couldn't open the jewelry box. So now that Sakura and Kiro knew what it was, that's when Madison wants to know how come she didn't see it. Then Kiro just let slip to Madison that the reason why is because only Sakura, who has the magical powers, be able to see it, and Madison doesn't. So, Madison says, what's it doing in my mother's room? Why now? Then it's Sakura's turn to ask Kiro a question. Do you suppose that it may be possible that the shield card had picked Madison because she's my best friend? Of course it's possible, Kiro says, and he explains why. Because he said in his case that the shield card is not only a smart one, but is good at what it does, protecting everything that it cares the most, or what values the most. Then Carol also explained to Madison that whatever's in that jewelry box, it has meant a lot to Samantha, who's Madison's mother. So, Carol also said to Sakura that he has a plan to have Sakura cut through the shield. And the only way that she can do that is by using the sword. So, you know what she did? She used the sword card that she caught since episode 9. And guess what? It worked. And when after the shield was cut, so it's now up to Sakura to catch it, and which she did. So the shield card makes it number 13 on the list. Well, good news, Madison, as always, has it on video camera. But the bad news is that Sakura forgot to change into the fairy costume. But not to worry, she'll use it some other time. So, in other words, it's now Madison's turn to try again with the key for the jewelry box. And when she used the key for the jewelry box, this time it worked. So you know what this also means? That means that Samantha doesn't have to take it to the locksmith after all. Not only did Madison agree to let Sakura see what's inside of it, and when Sakura did, what she saw was unbelievable. It's a wedding bouquet that used to belong to both her and Tori's late mother when she, and of course, I'm talking about Natasha, and Aiden got married at the time, and Samantha has had it since. Sakura was in shock. Then suddenly there's a knock on the door. It's Samantha, and she just let the girls know that she had just come back. I guess you could say that Sakura had caught the cue card just in time. Even better, Madison just told her mother the good news that she doesn't have to take the jewelry box to the locksmith because, thanks to Sakura and her help, that they managed to get the jewelry box opened. So now that Samantha is relieved to hear the good news, she picks up the bouquet that her best friend, and let's not forget Sakura and Tori's late mother once had. She then holds it close to her chest and sniffs it with her nose. Sakura just made a compliment to Samantha how beautiful the bouquet looks. It is, Samantha says, and I'll tell you a little secret, because Samantha said that this bouquet used to belong to Sakura and Tori's late mother when she was married to their father Aiden once upon a time. Oh, there's something even better, Samantha says. They're cherry blossoms, which is why your name is named after this flower that Natasha has. That was her favorite. Then Samantha says, wait, there's more, because she just let slip in front of Sakura to say, before Natasha, which is both her and Tori's late mother, passed away, she said that she had once made a promise to Samantha that if she does have a child, it'll be named after her favorite flowers. So Sakura means cherry blossoms. And there she was, just right after her brother was born. Now Sakura realizes that what Samantha said was true, and that both her and Tori's late mother's wish came true. So now Sakura realized that that's where her name comes from, and as she closes her eyes, that she can finally tell that what Samantha said was also true, that resemblance between both her and Tori's late mother and herself were undeniable. So after the memories of Natasha faded away, that's when Samantha asked Sakura a question. Why don't we go have some dinner together? And Sakura agrees, and along with Madison, who's Sakura's best friend. Before Madison can join up with her best friend and her mother, she saw something else that was in the jewelry box, besides the bouquet, of course. It's a yellow pouch. Now, whatever's inside that pouch is when Madison explains that someday Samantha will have to give that to Sakura when she gets older. Now, what was in that pouch, I can't say for sure. So, Madison, after she hears the voice of her mother, and that's when Carol says, bring me something back when you get a chance. And Madison agrees, and then she heads off. But who knows? Whatever's in that pouch, it used to belong to Sakura and Tori's mother too, and I'm sure Sakura will take very good care of it in the future. But right now, Sakura has a lot of cloud cars to catch. So that ends episode 11.